Welcome to CS225. I am your instructor Robert McMillen, and we are going to talk about Module 6. In this module, we're going to cover Chapter 9, End User Needs Assessment Projects. Our objectives will be basic strategies for performing end user needs analysis and assessment, steps analysts undertake to analyze and assess a user's needs, common tools that help support specialists to conduct a user needs assessment project, tasks in managing a user needs assessment project, and project management software tools. Overview of user needs analysis and assessments. Our purpose is to determine which computer products and services best meet end user needs. Our strategy is to understand the user environment, clarify the problem or objective, investigate alternative solutions, and decide on a solution to meet the user's needs, and decide whether to purchase that solution or build that solution in-house. The process can be formal or informal. So here's some examples. Select products, a computer system, a peripheral to add to an existing system, an application software package, an office network itself. The select services, a training program, internet service provider, or an online media backup service. There are three phases in needs analysis processes: a preparation phase, the investigation phase, and the decision phase. In preparation, the goal is to understand the problem, goals, decision criteria, stakeholders, and information needed for a project. These are all covered in the Project Plus certification mentioned in the last module. In the investigation phase, we'll look at the goal to understand the present situation and alternatives. And the decision phase, the goal is to develop a model of a proposed system and decide whether to build or buy it. The steps and tasks, preparation phase activities, and understand the end users and organizational goals, understand the decision criteria and constraints, define the problem clearly, identify the role of stakeholders, those are people who actually have a stake in the project, identify sources of information. Investigation phase activities include developing an understanding of the existing system, so you got to know what you currently have, and investigate alternatives. The decision phase activities include developing a model and make a build versus buy decision. So step one, understanding the end users and organization's goals. So what is the environment into which the future system will fit? You have the goals of the organization. Is it a for-profit or not for-profit? Are there plans for growth or expansion? Sometimes we buy a product and we outgrow it before we actually end up adopting it fully. What's the attitude about technology? Is the organization's culture, the people, the staff that work there very tech savvy, or are they afraid of technology? Experiences adopting previous technology changes, budget for computer systems and services, and the level of staff expertise. Step two, understand the decision criteria and constraints. Which criteria will impact the final decision? Is this project even feasible? Maybe it'll be too expensive. We won't be able to afford it. So we got to do a feasibility study to investigate the constraints. That's anything that will keep you from actually performing the project or seeing it to completion. That impact a project. You have economics, you have operational feasibility. Will it fit into your organization? Technological feasibility, the state of the current technology. Maybe you have a software package that will require a large upgrade of the network. Timeline feasibility, time constraints. Can we get this done in time to meet deadlines such as taxes and fiscal year end? Step three, define the problem clearly. What is the real problem that needs to be solved by this project? You have to ask a lot of questions during your management meetings. Not all problems are going to be technical. Some problems are organizational. You might have personnel issues, workflow training. It may not fit into the workflow that's currently there, and either a change has to happen in the workflow or you'll have to drop it. There's also politics involved. Is the software possibly a pet project of a specific manager and not necessarily good for the company? Management and, of course, resources. Do not assume that a user has correctly analyzed the problem. Observe the user in his or her environment. Consider solutions other than obvious ones. Step four, identify the roles of stakeholders. Who will be impacted by this project? A stakeholder is a participant in a needs analysis project who might gain or lose from its success or failure. So even if the stakeholder doesn't actually have anything to do during the project, they could still be a stakeholder if it will affect them in some way. So there's 4 kinds of stake users listed here: end users, managers, information technology or technical support staff, and of course support analysts. Can vendors be stakeholders in a project? So that's a question you have to ask yourself. Will they be impacted by the project? And what is their role if they are? Also not mentioned here, another stakeholder could be an investor in the company, a partner in the company. Which sources of information are needed to analyze user needs? Interviews with end users and managers, surveys or questionnaires completed by the end users. These are very helpful. Procedure manuals that describe the current system. Direct observation of the existing situation. You got to see where you currently are. Forms used for input into the existing system. Ask the potential users, how they'll be using it. Reports created from the existing system. See how it's running. Problem report histories or help desk logs. Diagram of workflow. Equipment inventories and recommendation from consultants, vendors, and auditors. How does the existing system work? A narrative description and or graphic diagram that represents a business activity, computer system, or network is a model. A model can aid an analyst's understanding. A model can be shared with stakeholders to verify an analyst's understanding. So the analyst in this particular case is the one that's looking to see if this product is correct for the business. And a model would definitely help in making that decision. 3 key questions for analysts. Do I understand the existing system well enough to explain its operation to project participants? Maybe you need to get educated on it before you're able to even bring this up during the project meetings. Do I understand which features of the existing system users like? What do they like and what do they don't like? What's wrong with the existing system? Why would you even consider changing? Step 7, investigate alternatives. How can the existing system or situation be fixed? Can you fix what you currently have without having to upgrade? Add resources, technical additional equipment, organizational additional personnel, budget, time, and priority. So throw more people, throw more money at it. Change resources, reinstall or reconfigure hardware or software. Can you make what you have work better? Provide additional user training. Maybe people are just using it wrong. This is the current system. Upgrades, improve processing speed, storage capacity, compatibility, or offer new features that address identified problems. Maybe you can upgrade what you have hardware-wise, and it'll make the software work better. That's a good alternative. Step 7, investigate alternatives. Continued, new hardware alternatives, resolve capacity constraints. Maybe you just don't have enough hardware space. You just need a simple hard drive upgrade. Run existing software efficiently, operate new software alternatives, address identified problems, increase user productivity, and expand business opportunities. Sources of products and solutions that address specific organizational needs. Articles and trade publications are sometimes helpful. Options other organizations use successfully in similar situations. Talk to other people in the business. Advertisements in trade periodicals sometimes helps. And of course, internet searches. What features would a new system or solution offer? Build a model of the proposed system or solution. Include the pros and cons of each alternative. You've got to write it all down. Answer the questions. Why is the proposed solution an improvement over the current one? Why is this the best available alternative? And be ready to back up what you say. This has to do with critical thinking. Once again, there is no right or wrong answer. The answer is correct when you're able to back it up. Step 8, develop a model of the proposed system. Continued. Kinds of solutions. Optimal solution. Best, most feasible, lowest cost, greatest benefits. Satisfying solution, less than optimal, but solves the problem. It's not necessarily the best. When we propose projects for customers, we provide them with a good, better, best scenario. The good one is always the least expensive. The best is always the most. So somewhere in between there, the best and the good and the best, usually they find some happy medium for what they want to get. Decision tool, a cost-benefit analysis, is a comparison between a solution's expenses and its payoffs to an organization. A useful tool to analyze a solution, pros and cons, and compare solutions against each other. A cost-benefit analysis is not an exact science with right or wrong answers. You have to make sure you keep any personal feelings out of it while you're doing it. For a small project, even an informal cost-benefit analysis is useful. So here's a tip. Users' needs should drive the specifications for a new system. Because if their needs are met, then the company will prosper from it. Another tip, software specifications are usually more important than hardware and should be developed first. You can always put in more hardware or less based on what the software is capable of. Step 9, make a build versus buy decision. Should the new system or solution be built or purchased? A decision to build a custom solution or purchase an off-the-shelf solution applies primarily to software, but can also apply to hardware if you have those kinds of capabilities in your company. A turnkey system is an integrated package solution that provides everything, hardware, software, and support. So this is different than buying the hardware separately from the software. This has it all included. The good thing about a turnkey solution is it's guaranteed to work by the manufacturer. The downside is it tends to cost more money because of all the Q&A they did in order to make it work. Building a custom solution, systems can be custom designed to meet end user needs. It can be tailored to exact specifications. System may provide strategic business advantages over competitors. Buying an off-the-shelf system solution, lower acquisition costs, you don't have to pay for development and testing, faster implementation, better documentation, standard user interfaces and components, a lot less bugs in testing, ongoing technical support may be available. So needs analysis and assessment tools. There are several different categories in this area. You've got your project charter, your cost-benefit analysis, data collection instruments, charts and diagrams, prototyping software, project management software. So let's get into that. Project charter. It's a short narrative statement that describes the objectives, scope, methods, participants, and deliverables and timeline. Provides a high-level overview of a project. It's perfect for the C-level people that are in companies. Promotes a common understanding among all stakeholders. So everyone needs to read the charter and decide whether or not they agree with the charter before they go any further. Deliverable, the end result of a needs analysis project. Analysis of alternatives, feasibility report, recommendations, build versus buy decision. The project charter addresses what are the objectives of the project, what will be achieved, what's the scope, what's excluded. Maybe you might decide you don't need certain things. Which methods will achieve the project goals, who are the key participants and their roles, what are the project deliverables. That's important because once you know the deliverables, you can set up a timeline. What are the major project steps? What is the project timeline and how will success be measured? The success measured that the company is using the product? Is the success measured that the company is saving money or that the employees are happy? There's all different ways to measure success and more than one that you could decide you think is important. So here's an example form of a project charter. You could download one from the internet, and there's all different kinds of formats. There's even some that work with Microsoft Word. Cost-benefit analysis is a tool to help identify the costs and corresponding benefits of a proposed solution. Compares and weighs the benefits of each alternative solution to the costs of each alternative. Format, side-by-side comparison, is like a balance sheet, and helps an analyst compare alternative solutions. Categories of costs, you've got acquisition costs and operating costs. Categories of benefits, you've got tangible benefits and intangible benefits. Of course, the tangible benefits, they're easy to quantify. You can see it. Intangible is things like happiness factor. Cost of alternative, benefits of alternative. So let's look at the acquisition costs. Purchase computer equipment. Benefit is less expensive hardware and software. Purchase software packages or license. Fewer personnel required to operate systems. So you've got both sides of the table here for acquisition costs and reduced expenses that allow you to decide what is going to be important and what you want to put in all those costs and benefit analysis. Cost of alternative, you've got operating costs, equipment lease or rental, personnel, computer supplies, etc. benefits of alternative, increased revenue opportunities, and intangible benefits. Payback period, return on investment, the amount of time for the project's benefits to exceed costs. At some point, the company has got to see a profit in this one way or another based on what you measure success is. And then you will have what's called the payback period will be met. Example 1, a $1,000 investment in new software will result in more than $1,000 worth of benefits, cost savings in the first 6 months. The payback period is short term, less than 1 year. So starting at 6 months, you've got that payback period has been met. Example 2, a $12,000 investment in a web server and software is estimated to result in $5,000 of new business each year. The payback is much longer here, 2.4 years. And you also have to look at, will I have to develop that again in another year? So then I will never reach my payback period. Data collection instruments, input forms, output forms, procedure documentation, operating or problem logs, interviews and questionnaires, and direct observation. So we're going into more detail. You've got the input form, a paper document or display screen image used to collect information about a business transaction, also called a source document. So here's some examples: a payroll time card, a problem log, a membership application. These are all examples of input forms. So here's a graphical example of an input form. You've got your date, sold to, how it was paid, etc. Output forms, documents that contain the result of a business transaction or process. Examples: a grocery store sales receipt, paycheck stub, grade report. Procedure documentation, written instructions about how to perform a business transaction or handle a routine business process. An example would be a manual on how to process orders in a copy shop. That's a procedure document. Operations manual in a bank or credit union. So this basically shows what the company's procedures are to do a job in a company. A log, this is a list of events or activities recorded in the sequence the events occur. They could be routine, periodic event information, or unusual events. Maybe you just want to log things that are unusual, not necessarily the routine. An example would be a log of inventory shortages in shipping and receiving, or a log of problems encountered with a new software package. Interviews and questionnaires are used to collect relevant information from users, information about the work they do, how an existing or proposed computer system might affect their work. So when you ask all these people various different questions, then it's very important to get their feedback to see how they see themselves using the product and what benefit they would see by having it. An example would be an interview about user satisfaction with computer support services, a questionnaire about user likes and dislikes regarding the current software package. Interview advantage, interviews versus questionnaires. Interviewer can probe to learn details of issues that are of special interest. Interview disadvantage, takes more analyst time than a questionnaire. So a questionnaire, you just hand it to the person, but an interview, you do one-on-one or one-on-many in a group situation where you interview that person or people about what's going on in their world to see how things are working for them. The questionnaire advantage is the ability to survey a larger group at a much lower cost. It's much quicker to do it this way. But it's unfortunately just difficult to phrase unambiguous questions. So it's much better in an interview type of situation. An alternative would be a focus group, an interview with a small group instead of one-on-one. Direct observation involves watching users work. This is a great way to collect data. So when you watch them work, you see how they perform their job, and then you can tailor a software or hardware package around what they're doing. You do need to plan sufficient time for observation. You can't just do it for a few minutes. You have to find out what people are doing on different days. You want to take notes on what users do, their sequence of tasks, tools and strategies, who do they interact with, where users store their information, and problems the users encounter. Charts and diagrams are used to show the flow of information in an organization. They show relationships between workers Parts of an information system, workflow among employees. So these also help for the C-level people when you go to sell a project, because they are usually very busy or not very technical, but they can understand what a chart brings as far as data goes, and in understanding whether a project is worthwhile. They're often much easier to read and understand than a lengthy technical narrative that many of the C-level people don't have those kinds of skills already. Types of charts used in needs analysis: a flow chart, a schematic diagram that uses symbols to represent the parts of a system or the steps in a procedure. You'll see that in the book. Rectangular boxes, departments in a company, nodes on a network, processing steps a worker performs. These all could be flowcharts. There's other types called diamonds, decision points, yes, no questions, and lines, relationships between parts or a sequence of process. So here's your input at the top and your output at the bottom. IPO chart, a diagram that represents input, processing, and output steps to perform a task. Answers 3 fundamental questions about a procedure. Input, where do I get the information with which to work? Processing, what do I do to transform the information? Output, what do I do with the information when processing is completed? You might see this show up on a quiz in a little while. An example of an IPO chart: to prepare a stock portfolio report. Input would be download current stock prices from the financial website. Processing, update total portfolio values in a spreadsheet. You have to see different things about it: sales, profit, things like that. Output, prepare report as PDF document so the clients can understand what it is they're looking for. Got to make it easy to understand. Prototyping software. Prototype is a working model a support analyst builds to let users evaluate how the completed product of an analysis project would eventually work. Microsoft a lot of times releases a prototype of their operating systems and other software and lets developers and professionals test it and report bugs back to them. The advantages are a quick and cost-effective solution to build and easy to make changes suggested by users because it's not in production at that point. Limitations are usually operates slowly or has limited capacity for data storage. So here's another example. Use Microsoft Access to design a data entry form to help desk problem incidents. All right, so let's talk about managing a user support project. Help desk agents normally perform primarily routine operational tasks. A special project, however, is a support task that does not occur regularly. Characteristics of special projects, how they're different from normal routine tasks, are that steps and procedures are not well defined. Maybe nobody's ever done it before. Usually take longer to accomplish because no one's done it before, and often more complex than routine support tasks. So I tend to have a higher end person, a more experienced person, do this kind of special project. An example: perform user needs analysis or assessment. Select and install network or application software. Develop or update product standards or support policies. Plan and implement a new training facility. That could take some time. Select and install help desk management software. That's also a big deal, especially if you're changing from one to another. Develop end user documentation or training sessions. Project management steps, a detailed step-by-step work plan and process to reach a specific goal. So here's the steps: project definition, planning, implementation, monitoring, and termination. You have to define the project, plan it out, implement it, make sure it's working the way you expect it, and then bring it to a close. So project definition defines the project scope: goals, tentative calendar, tentative budget, participants, project manager. So in the beginning, a lot of things are going to be tentative. As things go on, then you can firm up a lot of those budgets and costs and times. Project goal is a specific measurable result that is the ultimate target or outcome. It is the deliverable. Purpose: divide a large project into smaller tasks. That way you can divide them up using different resources. Resources in this case may be people. Estimate a time for each task. Identify available resources and costs and assign resources to tasks. A project task is a specific action or objective that must be performed to reach your goal. So this requires a project plan. So you take this task, you put it into a plan, a document that describes the project, tasks, resources, timelines, and costs. Typical questions answered in a plan is, which task will be accomplished? What is the sequence? So some things have to be done before or after others. Who will perform each task? How long will they take? And what resources? You want to make sure you pair up the right people to get the best outcome. Analysis of project risk factors. Risk factors identify and evaluate problems that can arise during the life of a project. So there's lots of things that can happen that could cause the project to crash. Poor initial estimates of schedule costs and resources. You may be way off on your initial estimates. Unanticipated events. Someone gets sick. Lack of skills needed. Equipment problems. Conflicts among participants. That's why you want to make sure you pair up the right people when more than one person has to work on a specific task. You don't want any personality conflicts. So here's a tip. Time and budget estimates should fall between the minimum and the best case scenario and the maximum worst case scenario. Project implementation, work on each task or objective according to the task assignments and schedule in the project plan. The project manager's focus shifts from planning to coordination and resolving problems and conflicts. So there's a shift at some point after the planning is done into the actual working of the project. Here are some strategies for implementation. Direct conversion, terminate old systems when new systems become operational. Parallel conversion, operate both old and new to increase confidence. Of course, it does require a lot more work to do it that way because you're entering data twice. Phased implementation, workload is removed from the old system in stages as new system can process tasks. That doesn't always work based on whether you're going to a completely new system or just upgrading an old one. And a pilot project, of course, using a few selected situations to gain confidence before enterprise-wide implementation. Project monitoring. Project monitoring involves ongoing assessment of project tasks to determine how much work has been accomplished, how much remains to be done, how should staff or other resources be reallocated. Sometimes you have certain groups of people work faster or slower than others, and you need to move some resources around. How will changes in tasks impact the project completion? So as unforeseen things come up, how will those changes affect the completion date? So adding more staff to a task or a project doesn't necessarily get it done faster or better. You may end up with too many cooks spoiling that soup. Changes to a project during implementation are another risk factor. So scope creep, this is something you really have to watch out for if you are in charge of a project. And that is the tendency for a project to grow or change in unexpected ways. That could cause you to miss your time, your resources, and exceed your budget. So you have to watch out for scope creep. And if too much scope creep kicks in, then you may have to crash the project and start all over again. So tool for dealing with scope creep, change management procedures. Get together with everybody, analyze and approve change orders, and communicate about the impact of modifications. Tell them how much more this is going to cost and how much more time you're going to need, so that way all expectations are being met. Project termination is the final step. This is not a bad thing. It's the final step during which completion is communicated to stakeholders. The final project report is prepared and performance of the project and participants are evaluated. So key questions to answer: what did we learn from this project that will help manage future projects? You got to document that. And how well did everyone do? So that way when you do the next project, you can see, were there conflicts between one or more people? Did someone stand out positively or negatively? And then, of course, give bonuses or raises to those that did well. Project management tools. You've got Microsoft Project Professional, and I believe we're on 2012 now of that. You've got Cadassa, Software Milestone Simplicity, and you've got a lot of different open source tools out there, such as Project Open. And most of those use a couple of different types of charts. One of those is the Gantt chart, and that's really big with Microsoft Project. It is Gantt is the name of a person who developed it, and it is a project planning tool that displays basic information about each project's task as a horizontal bar and a timeline. And as each of those are met, you can, or a percentage of each of those are met, you can actually update that timeline. Also, it has a predecessor task, which is an activity that can be completed before another task can begin, and you can do that in a Gantt chart. Critical path is a sequence of project tasks that must be completed on time to meet a project's completion date. That critical path may show simultaneous different tasks being done in a project and the path that they have to take in order to complete on time. So here is a Windows Live mail training session, which is an example project, and it shows each step: planned training session, planned training materials, evaluation, and how long each different step will take. What we have here is a Gantt chart, and the Gantt chart shows the different task names, the duration, start and finish time, and who the resources are. And it shows here what has to happen in what order. Here's a revised and expanded one, so as each of the different tasks are done, it shows us how things are going along in the Gantt chart, and it shows us here some additional information. So in summary, we talked about needs assessment project is a sequence of steps designed to obtain relevant information from end users. Talked about major steps: preparation, investigation, and decision. User support analysts use a variety of tools when they do a project. So that is our conclusion to our Module 6, and we all look forward to our next module, Module 7.